My fish fam, today I have a very exciting new type of video because Joebrook, member of the Merfolk community, wants a little bit of coaching. So ask Nikachu, hey, Nikachu, do you do coaching? And I say, no, I don't. But however, I got a great idea. You record your Merfolk matches and I'll make a review. I'll review them and make a video out of it. How about that? You learn a little bit of something, I get a video, and everyone else can learn. And why would I want to do that? That's because there's so many concepts to modern Merfolk I almost never go over because, like, I'm the Merfolk master. There's certain mistakes I never make that I know the rest of you are, and I think we could learn a whole lot more about the modern Merfolk archetype by seeing the game played through, you know, someone else's gameplay. So this is Joebrook's modern Merfolk list. Not really gonna criticize it or anything all that much. It's, you know, it's got Merfolk cards in it. So this is not about the deck list, it's about how it's being played. I will, however, say not a huge fan of Waterlogged Grove in the metagame right now. Damage matters too much. And I mean, just philosophically on this, people love these lands when you flood out, but we are playing turns 1 to 4 way more often than we play turns 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Consider that. And on those turns 1 to 4, you take way more damage. All right, let's, there was one, we're going to skip right to a Murktide gameplay. We're up Merfolk versus Murktide. There was a match versus, the Merfolk mirror, but I think that's not very interesting to review. All right, we go, we're up against turn 1 Ragavan on the draw versus a blue deck. That sucks. All right, we are already in a territory that I am not enjoying. So one thing that we have to learn, you had two choices. You could play the Cavern of Souls on Merfolk, or you could play the Island and play the Vial. What's the difference? The difference is we are up against a deck with counter spells. Now, this is going to be a constant theme in this video, and that is that Magic is a hidden information game. Your opponent has no idea what's in your hand. And also, we don't know what the hell's going on in our opponent's hand. But the point is, because they don't know what's in our hand, our opponent may not play optimally given what they see on the board. But you just let them know we have Cavern of Souls. Well, what does that mean? It means turn 2, they will never hold up Counterspell. This is a deck that does play Counterspell. They play 4 of them. Maybe they even have Mystical Dispute in the main deck. They will never hold that up so long as you put Cavern of Souls in play. Like, they might have had the option on turn 2. Like, if you go Island, pass, then they may be like, should I hold up Counterspell, or do I play a Ledger Shredder, or do I want to wait till next turn to play the Ledger Shredder so I could go Shredder into a second play like Lightning Bolt on the same turn? They don't know what's the best play. But after you play Cavern of Souls, they'll be like, well, Counterspell's dead, so I'll just play my Ledger Shredder. So you'll learn that you want to deprive your opponent of as much information for as long as possible. And if it doesn't hurt you at all to play Cavern of Souls on turn 2, then you just shouldn't. You should hold it for turn 2. All right, they attack with a Ragavan. It looks like they didn't get any good value out of it, which is good for us. They're playing Preordained. I got this on 2x speed, by the way, so we can get to the juicy parts. All right, so it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad. We got another Ether Vial. What are we opting to do? It's saying screw the Ether Vial, which is like a fine play. It's fine. So we're going to tap down the Ragavan, which I also like because Ragavans, very early on in the game, especially against a blue deck, they're dangerous, they're deadly. They can cast all the cards off the top of our deck, so I'd rather not let that Ragavan live. We do have a lot of 3-drops. Everyone always says, I hate the 3-drops, Nikachu. I'm not going to play Glasspool Mimic. Well, look, we can play our stuff. Playing our stuff, no problem. Alright, we're going to hardcast a Reejerey, which is it's fine. Let's use our mana. We're going to attack in for 3, which is fine. I also think we are just very largely advantaged here. We've got 2 more Reejereys on a Glasspool Mimic coming up. Like, next turn we can dump our hand and probably destroy our opponent. Our opponent plays Expressive Iteration, which more or less, well, it doesn't really make them tap out, but like, they're like digging for something, and I don't even know if they have anything good. They didn't even do anything about our Trickster last turn. Whoa, 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 what's going on here? Why are we all of a sudden so defensive versus this Ragavan? We're ahead as far as I'm concerned. I would gladly let my opponent like bolt this Reejerey, and then we just dump our hand next turn. We literally can go next turn, tick up Vial and Reejerey, play the other Reejerey, untap the Vial, play another Reejerey, and like everything is everything's at least a 4 toughness creature. And that's assuming they have Bolt. If they don't have Bolt, they're just really stone cold dead. I would rather let this Ragavan go through. We are ahead right now. But after that trade, that gives our opponent a little bit more time to get back into this game with Murktide Regent. Okay, well, we can still dump our hand, which is fine-ish. Oh, that actually complicates things. Okay, so hold on. If we have Tide Shaper, what is the best? Whoa, what? Don't know why we're trying to cast something here. So the play is, the whole point of the Reejerey style deck, Reejerey, Glasspool Mimics, Feloon, is tick Vial up to 3, Vial and Reejerey, cast any random Merfolk, untap the Vial, and then replay something. And it looks like here we could Vial and Reejerey, we could then play Tide Shaper for just a blue, don't even do anything with it, untap a land, then play Reejerey, untap Vial, and then or is there a way like we can like tap down this Murktide? Violent Reejerey, play Tide Shaper. Maybe you just have to hold off on one of the Mirror Reejereys, or dump your hand, hold Tide Shaper in your hand, and then use it to like triple tap down whatever they have next turn. There's literally no reason to hardcast your Reejerey here. You have to Vial it in play. That's the combo. And then you cast a Reejerey, you cast anything, like even Tide Shaper, untap your Vial, and like even if they Subtlety here, you still get a lot of value. You get all the value. Now we can't even put 2 things in play at once. That also, okay. I guess you wanted to play it like super slow. We had a very powerful hand. We were in a position of strength. I don't know if we might be able to race this Murktide. It's a 7/7, so that's a 3-turn clock. Next turn we could go Violin, Reejerey. We'll have to... Also, hold on. Why are you doing it at the upkeep? Okay, so this is going to come back again. If you don't want to reveal your hand all of a sudden. You want to be... If you're going to go for this Trickster play, wait until the beginning of combat step. That is the last possible moment your opponent can make any decisions before... That's the last possible moment they can make any decisions before they attack. Maybe you're playing around like Lightning Bolt or something, but they would have to draw it right now amongst like Unholy Heat and stuff like that. But I doubt that they'll ever burn their removal spells on a Merfolk Trickster anyway. But I would most definitely wait until the beginning of combat step so that you minimize the amount of information you give your opponent. All right, we chump block this Ragavan. Okay, so now we're in a different... Let's go back to that chump block. I don't like this chump block. Okay, now you're doing something called playing not to lose instead of playing to win. We're at 18, they're at 15, but we don't really have much on the battlefield. Your opponent has a 7/7 flyer. You're going to die to that thing. So at the very least, you got to ask yourself, well, how am I going to win the game in 3 turns? Like, it's fine to be defensive if you're, like, if the board is equal or you're slightly ahead. But when you're behind, you now have to start thinking, okay, how do I win this game? And then you have to play in such a way that you can win. I would rather you just actually let this Ragavan smack you for 2. Next turn you play Reejerey, attack for 6. Like, the Ragavan has to go back to their hand, which is not too bad. So next turn you attack for 6, they go to 11. They smack you for maybe 9 the next turn, but then they're like dead because you have Tide Shaper and Mirror Reejerey. Now they might have, if they have removal, they have removal. There's nothing you can do about it. You had all your you had a ton of creatures earlier. but we decided to be very defensive with this hand. But you can't be too defensive, because there's a point where, like, you have no chance of winning. And if you keep trading your creatures, then we have no chance of winning. Please, please. No. Again, you could Vial in the Reejerey, play Tideshaper, untap the Vial, and then play Reejerey. Maybe you're not familiar with the interaction. All right, we're attacking for 4. We are in some ways actually in position of winning the game. Oh, no, we're not. Unless we top deck a Lord. But they can't use the... At least they can't use the Ragavan anymore. If you love the educational content, you let me know. You give me a thumbs up. And etc. Alright, we got a Dragon Rage Chandler. It's out on the battlefield. Attacking for 7. They do have the option to block if they want. I mean, if they don't really have the option to block... because... Oh, okay. Then they Unholy Heated one of the Mirror Readers. But because we had a Merfolk in our hand, there was no chance of them blocking, period. Alright, we got our Subtlety here. Which will do absolute squadoosh. Actually, you know what? Because you have Subtlety in the main deck, I would have highly, highly, highly considered taking the Vial up to 4. And I'll tell you why. Because you are effectively empty-handed. Like, Tideshaper can untap this land. And you can cast all your other cards. So if you got a 2-drop, a 3-drop, Sphaloon, or Mirror Reejerey, or Glasspool Mimic, you could cast all of those. And you're basically empty-handed. So when you're empty-handed, you always got to think, well, what is a card I can't put in play? And one of them is actually Subtlety. So on that very final turn here, you probably should have ticked the Vial up to 4, because I don't think there's any advantage to leaving it on 3, because you can cast all your 3-drops. And you desperately need this chump block against that Murktide. So a Bolt were dead. If they have... they only have Ragavan in hand, which you can block, fortunately. Or actually another Murktide kills you as well, because the Murktide will buff up the other Murktide. And we dead. It was still a little close, but and maybe you could win if you could, like, block with Subtlety. Okay, so what are we doing here? We are bringing in... Okay, so matchups like Murktide are more about what's in play than what's in their hand. Although I will admit, I'm leaning a little bit more to Chalice of the Void, which is, I think, is going to be fine in this matchup now. They're a much leaner deck than they were before. They have less 2-drops. Because of Ledger Shredder doesn't work very well versus Bowmasters, so they're leaning harder on Ragavan and Dragon Rage Chandler and Murktide. But Counterspell is bad, because you have to hold up mana, and there's no guarantee you can counter anything, and also the deck is super mana efficient, so you can sometimes have, like, Counterspell in hand, and it's just super clunky. They can play at instant speed, just like you do. So I'm not a fan of Counterspell in this matchup. The rest of this looks fine. Subtlety is maybe a personal preference thing. But yeah, these tempo... Oh, we're taking out the Counterspells. All right, good. Good, I like that. Oh, we're even taking out a Subtlety. A little clunky. One downside to Subtlety is it's like a 2-for-1. Okay, so, like, the sideboarding was great. All right, we've got... Not a great hand, to be honest. This is like one of those hands where I'm like, I hate this hand, but I'm going to keep it anyway. So I would do the exact same thing as you. We do have a Sphaloon, which is nice in the matchup. Mutavault is nice because that has increased our threat density. I'm wondering if it was better to play Mutavault into Vial, because it's not... Here's the thing. It's the most mana efficient if you can use your Vial for something, like vialing in a Lord of Atlantis. Not to mention your Lord of Atlantis might be a little naked to removal, so maybe Mutavault into Vial might have been a little bit better. And you even would have the option to attack with the Mutavault next turn. Attack with the Mutavault, and then see what they do, and maybe Vial in Lord at the end of your opponent's turn. And then very slowly squeeze a Sphaloon in play. Okay, Unholy Heat hits the Lord of Atlantis. So we are making our opponent's plays a little bit more mana efficient in that way. Now we are up against a very, very tough spot of Dragon Rage Chandler and Ragavan. Okay, I am of the opinion that you have to kill like a Dragon Rage Chandler at all costs. That thing is way too dangerous. It's just worth too much of a hassle. If it hits you for 3, like, it's very likely to hit Delirium next turn and hit you for 3. So you might as well dismember it right now. Like, Ragavan is also very dangerous, but the thing with Dragon Rage Chandler is that they will keep the gas coming over and over again. And on top of that, you've got Otawara, so if your opponent's Ragavan grabs a creature of yours, you can bounce that creature to your hand. But really, just in terms of like saving ourselves life, I'm expecting that you're going to take at least 3 damage from this Dragon Rage Chandler, and you're going to take another 4 somewhere else. That's a lot. You got to keep your life total as high as possible. I would rather kill this Dragon Rage Chandler right now. Also, I should say, your Svelune is vulnerable this turn, but if you can wait a turn and get, like, I don't know, a 2-drop, then you could play your Otawara. Like, my favorite spot for casting Svelune is actually on turn 4, because I can leave up a creature with Vial, play Svelune with Mutavault mana up, play the Svelune, and then if they try to kill Svelune, activate Mutavault, Vial in the creature, and she's indestructible. So you're almost set up for that, except you don't have the 2-drop yet. Another Dragon Rage Chandler. This is a nightmare. But they don't seem to have removal. Okay, they have a Bolt. They have Bolt. 100% they have... What? Oh, they had Unholy... Okay, that's possible too. They have Unholy Heat without Delirium. They're working on it. They didn't find it. But they're very happy with how that ended up. I would have snap killed one of those things a long time ago. Actually, on this turn too, you could play you actually could have played Svelune and hold up Otawara just to protect it. So that could have been an option as well. It's just that in this game, you have 2 Vials, you didn't use them at all. You literally hard casted your creatures. When you did, you could actually work with those Vials and use your mana for other things. It's like you have Soul Ring, but you choose to spend all your mana on with your lands. Oh, they give you Respect. They didn't even want to attack with their Dragon Rage Chandler. The good news is we have this auto. No. Again, okay, so we're gonna repeat the lesson. You want to wait as long as possible before you make your moves. This is uncounterable. Bouncing the Murktide, I love it. I love this idea. But why are you doing it on your first main phase? Let's wait. Let's pass the turn. And let's wait for them to attack. And let them attack. Wait for blockers. And then bounce. Here's the thing. You have 2 cards in hand when they attack. Now when you bounce, you have 1 card left in hand. And by the way, you didn't even Vial in anything last turn. Maybe they'll attack with Dragon Rage Chandler this time. You want to deprive your opponent from as much information as possible. You're giving them more information. Instead of going into an attack with 4 mana up. By the way, when you have 4 mana up, you could have Trickster. You can have Harbinger. You could have Otawara. They have to think about all these things before they do anything. But now you've tapped out. You've tapped out. Now you have 1 card in hand. That's way easier to play around. Not sure if they'll actually go for an attack with Dragon Rage Chandler, but you give them perfect information. Maybe I should, okay, maybe we can dive into this a little bit better. And I know you're going to have better examples of this later, but I believe in something called perfect board state. Perfect board state information. And what that is okay, when you're up against someone and you know the game is like really, really close, but you like, let's say you think you're winning, but the game could be really close depending on what your opponent has in their hand. And let's say they tap out and they play something and you feel this wave of relief because you know you've got the game locked. And the reason for that is because you have perfect board state information based on what they have in play and what mana they have left, which is none because they tapped out, you know exactly what, or basically exactly everything that they could do, especially in a format where there's no free spells. And every single time they do that, you can, like, every single time they do it, you could do whatever you want at sorcery speed on your turn because you know they can't interact with you. And you want to reduce how often you do that against people, because for as long as you have mana up, you make it harder for them to make perfect plays. Right now, they can just play Expressive Iteration, no problem. They can do whatever they want. They're having a great time over here. They go Mishra's Bauble. I don't even know who they're targeting. Oh no, they're just casting it. They're targeting you. They have free reign over what's going on this turn. No, not a care in the world. They attack for 3. See, I would have much preferred, like, and oh, by the way, there's so many micro decisions they have to make there. You know, they had to make a micro decision with their Dragon Rage Chandler. They had to make a micro decision with their Mishra's Bauble. They might have had to target themselves to figure out if they want to keep the card on top based on, like, because if you lay 4 mana up and you have 2 cards in hand, that's scary, especially since you have Mutavault. And you put, oh no, you couldn't attack with Mutavault because there was a Murktide. If you left the Murktide up, there would have been a Murktide up. And now they replay their Murktide, which, by the way, maybe they could not replay. They might have tapped out on their turn, and then they go for the attack with the Murktide, and then you bounce it, and then they might have had to wait for the next turn to play their Murktide. These are all edges that Merfolk can take advantage of, because Merfolk can play at instant speed. And if you're not taking advantage of those things, you are you're not playing Merfolk to its full potential. So I want you guys, you have to play your spells and abilities at as late as possible. With the only exception is you can do things early if you think you're playing around something, like something very important. Like if your opponent's tapped out and you want to get underneath counter magic, that's totally fine. But in that case with Otawara, it's uncounterable. The engineered explosives for 1. It is actually not a good engineered explosives for 1. Our opponent has way more mana. Has like way up on life on creatures, and they basically 1-for-1 themselves between this Dragon Rage Chandler and that Tide Shaper. And anyway, I thought that was a bit silly, and then we lost. Who knows how differently that game could play out if things went differently. All right, so let's go on to, let's go take a look at another one. Actually, this is going way faster than I thought. Maybe we'll see 3 games today. Sacred Foundry Shock Pass. It's Burn! In Burn, you want to keep your life total as high as humanly possible. Alright, now that we know we're playing against Burn, I like this. Yes, let's Tide Shaper that damn Sacred Foundry. Get him! Go get it! What's our opponent doing? Oh, they're floating mana to kill the Tide Shaper. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. That's fine. I love everything about what's going on except that we have a Dismember in our hand. That sucks. They go Lava Spike. We're in a pretty good spot here, actually. They're choked on mana. Yeah, we're throwing out the Sphaloon. Alternatively, you could play a Vial and a Master of the Pearl Trident, but, you know, I'd like the Sphaloon in play as well. This can really take over the game. And for the record, if they played a creature at any point, I'd probably play Subtlety. Just to slow it down. Hexcatcher is amazing. Whoa! Again, why are we doing this right now? Why are we doing this right now? I don't mind getting Hexcatcher in play. I love Hexcatcher. But when is the most relevant moment for us to play Hexcatcher? Like, we know our opponent can't kill any of our stuff. The most relevant moment to play Hexcatcher is if you wanted to play it. I would say at the blocker, after the blocker step. I probably wouldn't even do that, though. I'd probably wait to see what my opponent does, because with the Hexcatcher on the stack, in theory, the opponent could bolt Sphaloon and then bolt her again, and then you can't play around that. Whereas if you attack for 3, draw the card at the very least, like, see what we're gonna get, see what our opponent does as well. If they go for a double bolt, then you can flash in Hexcatcher and counter one of them. Yeah, playing Playing Hexcatcher here lets your opponent interact at instant speed with something. And double bolt would suck. Also, your opponent now, I guess Searing Blaze is a play too. So we took a little bit of extra damage for nothing. I think, honestly, the play I would make would be attack with Svelune and then maybe pass. Or if our opponent fetched during combat, that would have been fine as well. But I think with a Hexcatcher in play, this game should be in the bag anyway. I don't hate countering that light up the stage. But I might have capped it because it's just a perpetual counter spell. Opponent has 2 cards in hand, so we should still technically be ahead. They drew a land. They still have 2 cards. Like, the only way we lose is to double Boros Charm. That's just very unlikely. They're fetch Shocking, which is insane. Okay, they Boros Charm us once. Don't have to. Don't have to. Okay, okay, it's still... okay, I have a lot of problems with this. Again, don't violent... You can cast your creature. You can cast your lord. That's fine. Before combat. That's totally fine. But, why are we violating in the other lord? Why don't we wait until the blocker step to violate that lord? And by the way, you guys know you make these mistakes. I've seen it. I see it in paper play. I see it in other people's streams and videos. I've seen these errors. That's why I want to bring it up to everybody. And let me tell you how... and you might say, well, it doesn't matter, Nikachu. It didn't matter. Well, what if, when we attacked with Svelune, we drew Hexcatcher? Wouldn't we want the Hexcatcher in play? Wouldn't that be a better lord to vial in? And then maybe some of you are like, well, we didn't draw Hexcatcher, but we didn't know that. You're passing up on all the opportunities when we did draw Hexcatcher, and that would be a superior card to have in play, and it basically would lock the game, because I don't think there's any way our opponent can play 2 burn spells for victory at that point. So, look, I guess our opponent had nothing, and they just conceded. That actually makes no sense. Hold on, were we attacking for lethal there? Oh, we were attacking for lethal. Okay, forget it. Still, wait on that lord. You wait on that lord. Don't violate anything until the blocker step. Because you're giving your opponent more information than they deserve. Okay, what are we doing here? We're bringing in counter spells. That sounds good. I prefer a few subtleties on the draw to hit a creature. I don't mind 2 for 1ing myself just to slow their game down enough. And I prefer to have as many seize effects as possible when I'm on the play, but not on the draw. It's just really clunky. Because when you're on the play, you can never give them they'll never have, like, Searing Blaze, Boros Charm mana. So, like, we have Spreading Seas on the draw, but, like... So the point of Spreading Seas on the play against Burn is that by turn 2, they won't have Boros Charm online. Because if we're on the play, we go turn 1 island, they go turn 1 mountain, we go turn 2 island, turn your mountain into an island. Then on next turn, they play mountain, and they have mountain island. Now, what does that mean? They can't play Searing Blaze. They can't play Boros Charm. They can't play Searing Blood or Lightning Helix or any of the double red cards, which are the double red or red-white cards, which are the most impactful versus us. But if they're on the play... Well, they can. They go turn 1 mountain, you go turn 1 island. They go turn 2 Sacred Foundry, you go turn 2 Spreading Seas, like the Sacred Foundry. But then on their turn 3, they'll play Mountain Searing Blaze, and they still have double red. And they have the initiative. And also, I find that Spreading Seas is pretty clunky on the draw. Alright, we are up against the Swift Spear. A little swifty. I hate being up against Swift Spear draws. Unfortunately, sort of a crappy hand. Okay, we'll light up the stage. They get another Swift Spear. This is the worst possible start for you. in the whole Merfolk universe. All right, we got Spreading Seas. I guess I would make that play. Maybe? Maybe not. They had the Sunbait Canyon. Like, so you're not actually stopping anything. So here's the problem. Like, you took... So here's the problem with Spreading Seas on the draw. You took a complete turn off, and they still have mana. And they can still use the colorless mana for, like, Skull Cracks or hard casting Rift Bolts or Light Up the Stage. I'm surprised they didn't even go for the Rift Bolt right now. They probably have... Well, I don't know. Let's see what they do. If they don't play a spell, they should have just hard cast Rift Bolt there. They should have just hard cast Rift Bolt. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with this. What are they playing around Force Negation? Like, this is still played on their turn, even off suspend, so they're not playing around Force Negation. So they should have just hard cast for 3 mana. They didn't even use their Sunbait Canyon mana. Alright, they're getting in with the Swift Spears. I like the block with Svelune. I hate that they have Searing Blaze, but whatever. And you can only wonder what this game might have played out differently if we had one more creature in play, because we had the option to get a Lord in play on turn 2. The option was there. I don't mind throwing out the 2 random... do I want the 2 random Lords out? Maybe we want the Hexcatcher out, because you're very close to dead. But we also can't really afford to play anything. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, let's think about this. Okay, Eidolon of the Great Revel, and they didn't play any burn spells before it, so they have to be empty-handed. They can't have anything left. So if you attack for 6, they can attack back for 4. You go to 3, so you're not winning the race. You can attack with 1. Then they can maybe double block it. But then the Eidolon dies. Let's see what you do. It's always a funny game with the Eidolon because they can kill themselves with their own Eidolon. So you're like at the moment, I'm sort of reading that they're empty-handed. They probably just top deck the Skewer the Critics. Like, I think. So they hit you for 3, you go down to 4, you play Hexcatcher. Yeah, you can't block both of them. That sucks. All right, now what are we doing? They had a pretty good hand, like 2 Swift Spears and Eidolon without Vial. It's sort of brutal. Okay, here, I was just talking earlier. Now, maybe you're going to be lucky and you don't draw any more. You draw some islands, but like this Waterlog Grove in this matchup is just awful. And you know what? I think the same is true. Like, if you have to cast things off of this Waterlog Grove, like your Trickster and your Svelune and your Tide, maybe not the Tide Shaper, but putting yourself to 18 life, that's like giving your opponent a free shock or a free attack or something like that. This is why I don't like Waterlog Grove for this matchup, or Crashing Footfalls, or Murktide, or anything. And like I said, you play turns 1 to 4 way more often than you play turns 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and whatever. All right, no turn 1 play. That puts you way ahead. Way, way, way ahead. Because the toughest matchups are the ones... Okay. Well, fortunately, there weren't a lot of good targets for this counter spell, because, like, let's say they threw Skullcrack at you. Countering it would cost you 1 life, which sucks. But I think this definitely was worth the 1 life. That worked out really well. All right, we've taken 2 damage so far off of this Waterlog Grove. There's another Eidolon. And fortunately, you have this big Svelune in play, and you have a Mutavault. You know what I would strongly consider? This is not a bad plan. Okay, you know what? I don't mind this play. You can just go with this. But another interesting play is just bounce the Eidolon with the Otawara. Attack for 3. And, like, what are they going to do? They're going to replay their Eidolon. Like, this is turn 4. They don't have another land. Because they would have played it on turn 3. So they'll probably... they're probably going to ignore their Eidolon play. Or replay the Eidolon and just be way, way far behind. Anyway, I don't mind this at all either. I guess you're holding up... You know, you could have... You're holding up Trickster, which is fine. Like, all roads lead to Rome at this point. But Tide Shapering their Sunbait Canyon would have been brutal. It just would have been absolutely brutal. Okay, so you can attack for 7 next turn. Just basically make them effectively dead. And what, we took 3 damage so far off this Waterlog Grove? In some weird way, we are happy that they flooded out on Eidolons. There we go. The tide shit. That should have been done last turn. Should have been done last turn. That's the whole point of this thing. And we knew they were weak on mana, too. They missed their third land drop for 2 turns. What's up, Burn player? What's up? Oh, they're just thinking about how to lose. They know it's over. Or I guess they're trying to give themselves a chance, but I mean they're lost. They would need to quadruple bolt you next turn, which is impossible because that requires 5 cards, a land, and 4 bolts, and they just can't do it. All right, so we won that one. Hooray! We win the good matchup, even though that we bolted ourselves quite a few times. All right, we have a lot of time. Let's go. You like that? You have everyone having fun? Is everyone enjoying the educational content? Let's move on. Let's go check out a look at another match. And it's going by fast because we're looking at 2x speed. Joebrook. What actually? Hold on, let's move back. Like, what were our mulligans? By the way, we won the die roll. I see you mulligan this. It's tough, honestly. So what would this be good versus? We don't even have Cavernous Souls. First off, it's a keepable hand, but it's just slow. It's very, very slow. Yeah, I guess you could toss it. Like, you're not going to play anything by turn 3. And it's not even that explosive even by then. You could, in theory, play Mutavault turn 1 to attack with it by turn 2. And that's, like, sort of doing something. Did we mulligan to... Yeah, we mulligan to 6. Oh, wait, go turn 1 Vial. What did we remove? Oh, did we toss a land? Oh, we tossed one of the Dismembers. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Who needs 2 Dismembers? 1 will do the job. In fact, in some matchups, 1 is too many. Steam Vents again into the Ragavani. 2 Mishra's Baubles. The first one wasn't enough. Okay, I would absolutely kill that damn thing. Yep. It's not the most mana efficient play. In fact, it's not mana efficient because we could have played one of the Lords. But it's, I would not let that thing live another turn. And unfortunately, they play Dragon Rage Chandler, which I honestly even find a much worse creature to play against. Interesting, not playing a creature. Now, I don't hate that play, not playing a creature. But it was still a possibility. Oh, because you wanted to play... Okay, hold on, I have a question. Here's the thing. If you're going to play both the creatures, I might have wanted to play the Master of the Pearl Trident at sorcery speed on your turn. Because based on, like, Steam Vents and Dragon Rage Chandler, those decks play Counterspell. And they had 1 mana tapped on their turn last turn because of Dragon Rage Chandler. I could play... Like, here's the deal. You want to wait for as long as possible. It's funny, you're doing it now. When normally you want to play it as late, take as much time as possible to play your spells, unless you can play around something. Now, in this case, you could play around something. You could play around Counterspell. So I would have... But also, actually, do you know what? You're playing around Lightning Bolt. They had 1 mana up. You're playing around Lightning Bolt. You know what? I take it all back. I'm trying to play around Counterspell. This is not a bad plan at all. Alright, so they strip you of your hand. They have an active Dragon Rage Chandler. Everything sucks. Yeah, you're playing around Lightning Bolt. Why make their... Because otherwise, if you played it at sorcery speed... So they did 1 mana up. If you played it at sorcery speed, they would have fetched out, like, probably, I don't know, Blood Crypt or something, and then just bolted your Lord. So you were playing around something, Joe. You were playing around something. It was great. All right, we take up the Vial to 3, which I do like. We have a ton of 3 drops in the deck. Attacking for 2. Unfortunately, we mulliganed. We're on the play. I hate mulliganing on the play versus decks with a lot of removal. Just hate it. Just gives them more cards, gives you less cards. I might... It's hard to tell if I wanted to play that Ether, if I would have played that Ether Vial or not. Because you are hiding some information. I love at least leaving one card in hand, and you can basically play all your 2-drops. So yeah, maybe leaving the Vial in hand is fine. You'd only need 1 in play. Our opponent is just doing a lot of things. They're sort of having fun by themselves. They're going off. And if I understand, this is now, like, it's either a Shadow deck, or it's like Murktide with Bowmasters or something. Because they're playing Grixis. I don't know exactly what's in their deck. They had Thoughtseize, so I'm a little bit more inclined to think it's some sort of Death Shadow deck. Yeah, they're lightning bolting your stuff down. They Dragon Rage Chandler you. Oh, looks like a Murktide. Whenever they tap those lands and then do nothing else for a little while, it's always the Murktide. Dismember. A little too late. All right, we're bringing in the chat. What else are we bringing? Are you bringing in? Don't know what you're bringing in. Okay, you're taking out some Hex Catchers. I don't love Subtlety that much in these matchups because, like, you can only hit Murktide with it. Also, you know what? Also, there's another thing I want to say. If we go back to the sideboarding, so you brought in, you still have 1 counterspell in the deck. Oh no, you have 2 counterspells. I don't really like counterspells versus Thoughtseize, because when they see a counterspell in your hand and they leave you with it, it's really hard to get good value out of that. It's like near impossible. Also, not really of a fan of Chalice of the Void versus Thoughtseize decks, because they Thoughtseize you and they're like, if Chalice is a problem, they take it, but if it's not a problem, they leave it with you. But although I think probably Chalice is good right now versus these Death Shadow Murktide decks, so even despite Thoughtseize, I'd probably bring it in. But Counterspell, absolutely not. I don't like Counterspell in these tempo-like matchups in the first place, and they get a lot worse when they can Thoughtseize you. Counterspell, knowing your opponent has a Counterspell in hand makes things really, really difficult. Alright, so we Tide Shaper down the Blood Crypt, which is perfectly fine. Opponent goes Unholy Heat. Alright, goodbye, little Tide Shaper. Opponent plays Thoughtseize. That sucks, because we have Trickster. So we should I don't know what they're going to do. Well, they take the Svaeloon. There's always some chance they might take the Trickster, but if they have the removal, it doesn't matter. So whenever we're up against a Dragon Rage Chandler, I always look at Trickster like a piece of removal, very specifically for that one creature. Very specifically. And I try to, like, hold it up as much as possible. Not hold it up, but I don't like to waste my Trickster. Okay, so here, this is what I'm talking about. We are Trickstering at upkeep, which is useless. Stone cold useless. Like I said in the Murktide matchup, I think Dragon Rage Chandler is the more dangerous than Ragavan. And the reason for that is you can keep putting, like, garbage cards from their deck into the graveyard, and then they keep all the really good stuff on top, and they have this constant stream of gas that you can never get through. So I want to kill that thing at all costs. Now, Dragon Rage Chandler says that when you have to attack, that's the funny thing about Dragon Rage Chandler. It has to attack. They have no option. They have to attack every single turn. That's great for us, because then we flash in Merfolk Trickster, target it, and then block it. And then that's a huge win for us. Anyway, they have Drown in the Lock, and none of this matters, but I do think it is worth the risk letting them draw an extra card for the turn, and then going to the attack step and try to Trickster the Dragon Rage Chandler after attacks, and then try to block it and try to kill off a free Dragon Rage Chandler. You'll still save, like, even if they have a removal spell, you save life, because the Trickster will, the Chandler will go from 3 power to 1. Oh, and we got another one. All right, let's see if we can. But the problem is you're probably going to do this at upkeep again. See, the problem with doing this at upkeep is that you're not going to, like, how do I put it? Let's say Trickster resolves. You still have to deal with Dragon Rage Chandler next turn. And by the way, your Trickster is probably, like, may or may not die. But, like, I think the Chandler is just way too dangerous. And it's, I don't think, like, you don't risk that much more by waiting until the attack step. Because if they have a counterspell or removal, then, like, whatever. It was gonna die anyway. Alright, we got an Ether Vial, and no, we don't risk anything by playing the Mare Reejerey there. Or playing the Vial first, then Reejerey. They have Unholy Heat. This is the crappy thing with Dragon Rage Chandler. It's relentless. It's just relentless. See, Death Shadow I can deal with. Dragon Rage Chandler. See, if someone plays a Death Shadow, they can flood out. Which actually can be a problem sometimes. Yeah, what to kill? I'd rather kill this damn Dragon Rage Chandler. Bowmasters! Disgusting. Okay, we're dead. We're super dead. Okay, we lost easily to that Death Shadow deck. I guess we can see all the matches. Alright, we're squeezing all of these. Maybe if the last one's over quickly, we can have a bonus by looking at the, Merfolk Mirror, which is just chaos. This is going by way quicker than I thought. Okay, hold on, I can skip ahead. We're not watching this live. Alright, Joebrook won the die roll, which means we won the die roll. Our hand is fine. We effectively have 3 creatures in hand, because I count the Mutavault as a creature. Gemstone Caverns, pitching a Fury, which means we are up against Cascade. We are up against Cascade. Again, okay, that's another thing, like, I think this sort of hand, I might have leaned even harder to play turn 1 Mutavault to attack with it next turn. Because, like, I'm always trying to figure out, how can I use this Vial? And if you're going to play, like, turn 2 Waterlog Grove into Master of the Pearl Trident, well, you might not end up using your Vial all that much. Whereas you could have attacked with Mutavault for 2, and then the following turn for, like, 3 with the Master of the Pearl Trident, you eventually Vial in play. But, anyway, it's a line. And also you could hold up 1 mana for Dismember if you need to, like, kill 1 Rhino or something. Because the way you do this, you're going to... Wait, now is not a problem because we ended up drawing a Trickster, so we have a lot more gas. And I do like the Lord coming out here. Because it's like... Or hold on, do I like the Lord? Hold on, we have a Vial up. Maybe I like Trickster better, then we play a Lord, and then in response to any nonsense, we Vial in a Lord. Yeah, I think I might have liked that better. Maybe we play the Trickster at end of turn, then a Lord, and then if they try to Fire and Ice or whatever. Anyway, this line is not bad either. But maybe we could have played around. Because, like, the deck, like, Crashing Footfalls, all the removal is 2 damage. Sorry, not all of it. Fury is, like, a ton. It's 4. But, that 1 mana Shock is 2 damage. There's Fire, which divides 2 damage to any targets. So you just want to play around that as much as possible. And we had a little bit of an option here. Like, if we've Trickstered at end of turn, we could play Lord, main phase a Lord this turn. Or maybe we'll be even able to do it here, but I don't. No! Why? Why are we doing this? Okay, so here's a problem. If you activate here, and your opponent might be going for Violent Outburst, but what if they're not? What if they're going for Fire? What if they're gonna shock your Reejerey? What about Stomp from Bonecrusher Giant? You should be more patient. Like, there's no reason to do this now. We'll do it at the end of your opponent's next turn. Or, if they play Violent Outburst, then Violet in play. Like, once they're tapped out, and you have the most information, make your play. But we don't have that information. We have no idea. Anyway, it's sort of, I don't know what they're going to do. They might kill the Reader, or they might go for Violent Outburst to play around Hexcatcher. And here's another thing. They might not even go for this play at end of turn, because if you have the Vile up on 2, they're going to be paranoid about Hexcatcher. So that is the value of, like, not tapping out. Remember, you don't want to give them perfect board state information, and for a split second, they have it. You cannot interact. Once you tap that Vial, you cannot interact with them. You have Force Negation, it doesn't matter, it's your turn. So Violent Outburst was perfectly free. Be interesting to see what their play would be if you just passed with the Vial on 2. They might have spent another turn. They might have. Imagine this. They don't want to get blown out by Hexcatcher. So they tell themselves, well, I'll play Fire on the Reedry instead. Oh no, they wouldn't work like that if they're still playing around Hexcatcher. Because they still lose to the thing. Not sure what they would do. Maybe they would just take another turn. Alright, we got the Footfalls out. But the point is, you don't know what they're going to do, because people won't... The main thing is about these perfect information board states is that for as long as your opponent needs to play around something, they can never make the perfect move. But if you're tapped out, your opponent will make perfect moves. And we're not perfect. We're not perfect in this world. We're not perfect human beings. The whole thing about games is that we make mistakes. All right, so we're not in a bad spot. If our opponent doesn't have removal, or maybe even if they have removal, it doesn't matter because our creatures are 3/3s at this point. Like, we're in a really good spot. Yeah, we're gonna attack with this Mutavault. We're gonna attack for like we can win this race. This is great. And then we can also tap a Rhino down with Ether Vial. Looks like they're gonna go for an ice. That's totally fine. You know what you could have considered doing at that point? You could have considered dismembering one of the Rhinos, because you're probably gonna take 4 damage anyway. Like, you're not gonna block a Rhino, and they can't use any counter magic. Like, I think maybe they could. It's our turn, so they could have Force and Negation up, which would take 2 cards. How many cards are in their hand? They have 3. They would have to have a blue card in hand, but maybe that's possible. Anyway, it's just, you don't have to do it because you're winning anyway. Okay, so if you're gonna dismember, you should have done it with the Mutavault mana so that you could crack your Waterlog Grove. Or unless, like, this attack gives you more confidence to attack a Rhino. I don't know. But you had more mana up before, and they do Force Negate it. Alright, still, it's okay, so it's not, okay, right now it's not hopeless, but we are in danger, we might be in danger of losing. Do you know what? Maybe it was just better not to dismember. Period. Yeah, now that I think about it. Because, like, even if we dismember and we kill a Rhino... Oh, no, but the idea is if the Rhino died, we trickster the other one, we don't take any more damage. Okay, so... But still, maybe it was best not to dismember in the event that they had Force of Negation. Because if we take this 4 damage and they got Fire, we dead. Maybe it's best to block. Yeah, you know what? I don't hate that. You lose to, I guess, Shardless Agent? Ooh, that was great. Don't do it now! Oh, does it change something? Okay. But again, like, there's no point. I'm gonna reiterate this again. There's no point to doing it. I don't know what, like, unless you wanted to tap a certain land to give you more information about your attacks, but I don't think there was any land that you could tap that would make any difference. So what? Whoa. Let's get back to our sideboarding. I just accidentally clicked the video in the wrong spot. So, I mean, one big leak we're seeing here is that, Joe, you're not patient enough to wait for the right moment. Like, you're basically turning your hand face up so far in this whole league. Your opponents know exactly what you're intending every single turn because you basically main phase Lords over and over and over again. Even when they have flash speed, that Hexcatcher had flash. You didn't need to do that. I mean, it's like you're playing poker with your hand face up. Like, the whole point of poker is, like, you don't want to show your hand until everyone's done betting. For all the poker players out there. Alright, so let's see how this epic Crashing Footfalls matchup plays out. We're going for, I believe we won the Merfolk game. So we're going for a 3-2 here. Hand is, okay. The hand is okay. Whoa, what are we doing here? Whoa, there was nothing wrong with that hand. There's nothing wrong. I don't love this hand because it's probably going to play into Fury. Because you probably have to go, like, turn 1 Tide Shaper. They have a lot of islands in their deck. And then you go turn 2 Master of the Pearl Trident. And then it might leave you vulnerable to Fury. But I would still keep this. You got, like, 2 Lords. You have Island. You have creatures. Now, does it... He might have mulliganed because he doesn't have any counter magic. You can race Rhinos. It's possible. What do we got here? So this hand is... See, the problem with mulliganing is this hand is actually not fine because you can't cast anything. You can't even cast your Lord of Atlantis. But even when you find Force Negation... You basically are spending 2 cards for that Force Negation. Which sometimes is fine against really glass cannon combo decks, but this is like a very fair combo deck, I would say, that we have the ability to race. So now it's like you've mulliganed almost a second time because you're going to pitch a card to this Force Negation. Alright, come on, Island. No, an Island, but not bad. I'd take it. Yeah, I would play the Tide Shaper here. And laugh at our opponent's Mystical Dispute. Ha 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 ha. Foolish Mystical Dispute. Do they have it? Yeah, they had Mystical Dispute. That's why they shocked that. They would never have shocked themselves. So that's actually some extra piece of information you can use going into the future. Like, they did nothing with their mana. They didn't play, like, Lorien Revealed. They didn't... I think that's the only thing they can play. Lorien Revealed and Mystical Dispute. Yeah, that's it. There's nothing else. So we had turn 1 Cavern on Tide Shaper to ruin their day. So remember, they got Mystical Dispute. And they could end up playing it much later. I would almost write that down. Okay, big sad face. They ice us. Okay, we have another Mutavault. Now, that's not bad, because now we can go Mare Regery and still have, like, a bit of a force to put up against our opponent. Yeah, they're going for it. Before we, I don't know, have Counterspell mana up. We don't have anything. Oh, we got 2 Lords, but we are positioned. If we draw 1 island, they're dead. They're just dead. We can race these Rhinos. We take 4, we play like Master of the Pearl Trident, smack them for 1 billion. We take another 4, we kill them. Now, that being said, they still have the initiative. I mean, they might kill this Regery, and then we have got just a big sad face on us. But let's see what they do. And also, we still need to draw our land. Okay, we don't draw our land. We're dead. We're in a lot of trouble. All right, we're in desperation mode here. Interesting that you tap the Cavernous Souls to do this, but whatever. Okay, I like the attack, so it's not going to work out for you. I like the attack. I like the attack a lot. Let's just hope that they don't have squat. It happens, by the way. So this is a great spot where you're playing to win instead of playing not to lose. I like this. I like this attack. I would have done the exact same thing. I would have lost the same horrible way. All right. What's in that sideboard? You have Harbinger of the Tides. I used to hate Harbinger in this matchup, but they now play with Murktide in the main, so I actually like Harbinger in the matchup now. And randomly you can bounce a Rhino, which is not a play I love, but I mean, it's not bad. It's not terrible. So the upside is you can bounce a Murktide. The medium side is you can bounce half of a Crashing Footfall, which gives you like a little bit more room, I guess, to let them resolve. Yeah, I think I'd prefer it more than Subtlety. Subtlety is also a fine card in the matchup. You have Force Negation, Kira. Kira, I don't really like in this matchup. So my deal with Kira is I think Kira will do exactly what you want it to do. It will soak up a lot of removal. Problem is, Kira is not good at turning the game around at all. And against Crashing Footfalls, it's such an aggressive, forceful deck that, like, you could play Kira and they put 2 Rhinos in play. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, my stuff survives, but I'm actually losing the race and I just lose. So that's the problem with Kira in Merfolk overall, in my opinion. It does do a good job soaking up damage, but it doesn't do a good job racing opponents very well. This hand's great. Our opponents, they're cheating. Putting this Gemstone Caverns in play. How did they do that? They stole the play away from us. Okay, I would put Tide Shaper. I would just throw a Tide Shaper out there. Like, I'm not going to wait until turn 2. I just want to start beating my opponent down. It would be a 1-1 right now, but their deck generally has islands. Like, they have a lot of islands in their deck, and they'll be really hard-pressed not to play an island. Like, it's possible that they would just have to play Breeding Pool here. Or Steam Vents, for example. Now, when you play the Tide Shaper, maybe they just wouldn't do that. But I would rather have played the Tide Shaper on turn 1. So you could attack for 2 right now. Like, maybe they don't play Steam Vents on turn 2 because they see Tide Shaper, but you're, like, starting to beat them down. Alright, they're going to be annoying. They have Violent Outburst. Unfortunately, we cannot interact with that. That sucks. Oh, do you know what's an interesting thing? Okay, we made a slight mistake here with this Mutavault. And I'll tell you why. So when I play Mutavault on any early turns of the game, turn 1, turn 2, it's always with the intention of potentially attacking with it on the very next turn. But you know what's a problem when you play Mutavault? You can't represent Counterspell. So your opponent's not going to play around it. I mean, so if we had 2 islands in play, it is not clear that they would have gone for Violent Outburst at upkeep. They might have gone for a Shardless Agent first on their turn. You force and negate it. Because, like, I mean, maybe in their mind it's better to play around more combos of Force Negation than Counterspell. I think that's way more common in the Merfolk deck right now. But the point is, they've basically got, like, more information out of what you could potentially do because you played the Mutavault turn 2. And you're not going to even attack with it. Like, let's be serious. You're just going to throw a Sveloon out there, which I also would have done. So if you're not going to attack with your Mutavault, I'd say you should have played the island instead. And that way your opponent would now be forced to play around, or at least consider Counterspell. And they might have played differently as a result. Like, maybe they played the same. So here's the deal. Remember, maybe they would have made the same play, but you're not giving them any opportunity to play, or you're not giving your opponent any reason to play differently, and you're not giving your opponent any opportunity to play differently. Based on, and also, by playing Mutavault turn 2, it means one of 2 things. Either you didn't have any more islands in your hand, or you didn't have a double blue spell in the first place. Think about that. Like Counterspell, for example. Oh, we're stone down 2 big dumb rhinos, and there's apparently another Crashing Footfalls on suspend. Remember, I'm gonna just repeat again. Magic the Gathering is a hidden information game. And the way you leverage this game is by depriving your opponent from as much information as possible for as long as possible. And play your cards out in such a way to represent a maximum range of possible spells. While without hindering your game plan. Like, again, if you had any intention of attacking with Mutavault on turn 3, playing Mutavault turn 2 is fine. I am totally fine with that. But I don't think you had any intention of attacking with Mutavault the next turn, so I would have played Island. And some of you guys might think, well, this doesn't matter, Nikachu. Like, why does it matter? It matters. Like, it does matter. This is the whole deal with the game. All right, okay, so now we're doing just great. Because we have this Master of the Pearl Trident. We can crack in for, what is it going to be, 6, 10 damage. And actually, we are just positioned to win, I think. Oh, what are we doing? Why did we do that? We bounced a Rhino instead of playing Master of the Pearl Trident. Ugh, I hope this isn't a situation where you're playing not to lose. So you do have 2 options. No, screw it. You had 1 option. Just attack with everything. I was just thinking, do you want to keep Mutavault back to give Svelune indestructible, just in case Master of the Pearl Trident dies? Then you can also maybe block Shardless Agent. No, I would just crack in for... because your opponent wasn't threatening lethal? I mean, it's possible they attack for 10 and they fire you. But the thing, you got to ask yourself, how are you going to win this game? You have less life. You do have a big board state here, though. I'll give you that. You do have a big board state. But you still have less life than your opponent. And I would try to lean to playing for a win more than playing to not to lose. You had a lot of options there. You could attack with the Tide Shaper and the Mutavault, hold Svelune back, or attack with Svelune and Tide Shaper, hold Mutavault back. Anyway, now you're down to 6. And now you have to be defensive here. Like, you have to be very, very defensive. Okay, Lord is fine. Like, okay. What is the point of this card having Flesh? What is the point? We constantly play it at sorcery speed. Okay, now you got hard punished. Hard punished for this Hexcatcher play. This is a textbook scenario of why we want to play our cards as late as possible. Imagine this. Imagine you don't play Hexcatcher. Let's rewind to a moment before things are not so evil. Okay, let's play our Lord. Okay, let's imagine this. Imagine we go to declare our attacks. Our opponent might be like, well, I don't want the Merfolk player to potentially draw a Hexcatcher or draw a counterspell or something, and this Tide Shaper and Svelune are dangerous. Like, because Svelune's going to draw a card, right? Well, I don't want the Merfolk player to find an answer to my Stomp from Bonecrusher Giant, so I'm going to play the Stomp before the Svelune gets to attack. And at that moment, when they try to do that and then pay the ward, then you flash in the Hexcatcher and you completely wipe the opponent out. Now, maybe they don't go for that play, but now they are absolutely forced to go into this play, and it's great. So they Stomp, you pay, but, like, you lost your creature. And now the game is just a little bit more awkward. I think at this point, I mean, you have, okay, I would attack with something. Because again, we need to keep this game moving. Like, we need to put ourselves in a position to win. So you have the option to either attack with Svelune or Tide Shaper. I don't care which one it is, but you have to remove, you can't be like playing to draw the entire time. Is it fine? Maybe this line is okay, but it's like really iffy to me. I think the safest thing to do is attack with Tide Shaper. Oh, it's really close. Either attack with Tide Shaper or Svelune. Maybe you attack with Svelune and then you block the Shardless Agent with Tide Shaper. Maybe. It's tough. Because in all these lines, that you have to play around like a Fire or something. Fire and Ice. And they could like bounce. They could Fire and Ice. Oh, there's another thing. I totally forgot. The second Crashing Footfalls. Okay, we had to attack. We had to attack for a lot. I guess we had to attack for like 4 with Svelune. We cannot play around removal. If the opponent has removal, then we're just lost. So if you attack for 4 with Svelune, their opponent goes down to 10. They attack with the Rhino and Shardless Agent. You have to block with Tide Shaper, and then next turn you could attack for 10 with Svelune, Tide Shaper, and the Mutavault. Because right now you can't win. I mean, unless you top deck a Lord. But you had it. There was a route. A pathway to victory without without needing to top deck a Lord of Atlantis. So sometimes you got to think, how do I win this game? What's the plan to win the game? Especially when you're low on life. Especially when you're like lower on resources than your opponent. And with these crashing footfalls now on the battlefield, you are absolutely lower on resources. Without a shadow of a doubt. So, yeah, the play last turn was attack with Sveilun and hope for the best. Alright, so we get to freely. I would block both. Yeah. That was nice. It was a little bit of a silly attack by them. Okay, sorry. It was not a silly. It was all part of the plan. They have to pay ward on just basically one, because after the Hexcatcher's dead, everything else will die. Oh, well. And we would have drawn a Waterlog Grove if we attacked with our Sveilun, which would not have been enough, and we lost. So this is taking it took a lot less time to do this whole league than I thought. So let's crank out this bonus match against Merfolk. It's the Merfolk Mirror. I don't have any good advice here because just depend. You could have a really good hand that just ends up not lining up very well against their hand. Now they have a slight advantage because they're playing the Simic build, so they're a little bit more aggressive. Depending on their actually it looks like they have a painful mana base, so that might be to your advantage. They could have had a mana base of like mostly, I mean, it still might be mostly like Cavern of Souls and Botanical Sanctum, but and they do have to have some fetch lands. But ooh, 2 breeding pools in the same deck. No, they're extra aggro. I do not hate that play. Yes, this is almost like card advantage in this matchup. And I would try to reduce the pressure of the opponent as much as possible, but they have this tons of Commander Speakers. Commander Speakers all over the place. Which is not bad because we've got Tricksters. So we can Trickster the Commander Speaker, turn it into a 1/1, and then block it easily. But then they have Master of the Pearl Trident, and we are in a little bit of hot water, a little bit of heat. I should say, like, cards like Trickster and Harbinger are just amazing in this matchup. They're huge tempo blowouts. It makes it so hard for the opponent to make attacks. I would not do anything with this trick, especially with Master of the Pearl Trident. I want to wait for my opponent to attack. Like, why are we doing this right now? Also, they could follow it up with another Lord. See, like, we're making our plays way too early. We're showing our hand to our opponent. Hey, like, this is what we got, you know? I don't want to do that. We should wait longer. Oh my god. Don't touch the vial. Okay, Lord of Atlantis, that's great. So maybe we can, I don't know what are you doing this for? Okay, what, just to prevent them from maybe attacking? I guess if they attack with two Commander Speakers, that would be fine. I would actually prefer... I think I actually prefer this line. Let them attack with their Commander Speakers. Then Trickster the Lord. Double block both of them. Would that work out? Then they have 6 power and play. Oh, the problem is this is a 2-turn clock. I was just hoping that I could, or that we could rebuild the board really fast. I guess that's not going to happen. Or what if we kill 1 Commander Speaker? Because the thing is, like, if they attack with the Commander Speakers or not, I mean, I guess this might dissuade them from attacking. But if they attack and then you Trickster down the Lord of Atlantis, it all works the same way. Like, it's this exact same board state. Okay, so they do attack, except that you give them more information this way. Okay, so you do go for the double block. Is this going to work out? Because it's very dangerous to have a Lord of Atlantis. Ooh, this is very good. That is going to very much work out for us. Aren't you happy you have Glass Pool in hand? A second Lord of Atlantis. Okay, so they attack for 3. They're still threatening lethal next turn. Well, that's awkward. But they were Simic. Come on, Trickster? Even though we use them all? Okay, we're just showing off our hand. Showing off what we can do. wonder if there was anything we could do differently there. I mean, maybe they just had like a really good hand of like 1-drops. And there was just nothing we could do about it. All right, so how are we going to sideboard here? I would not side out the lords. We need those lords. I will say these days, I do side out Lord of Atlantis now. We have just so many good cards, and Lord of Atlantis is just such a liability to Trickster, to Harbinger of the Tides, to anything really. It's just too problematic. So I would rather not play with Lord of Atlantis at all. But I would definitely play with the Hexcatcher. So again, this is a matchup where it's a tempo matchup where you want to side in things that affect the board. And that is a creature that affects the board. You like buff up all your creatures with Hexcatcher. Not to mention, if you have Hexcatcher in play, your opponent's Dismembers are really awkward. Like, it can counter Dismember. It can be much harder, at least, to use Dismember. You'd have to use, like, you have to use it with a whole bunch of mana up. So I would definitely keep the Hexcatchers. I would side out the Lords. You have 3 Lords. I would definitely keep the Hexcatchers. That's about it. I think the Hexcatcher is better than Lord of Atlantis right now in 2023 with the way we build decks. And also, if you don't kill your opponent with Lord of Atlantis, they will kill you. They will kill you with the counterattack. They will counterattack you. Our hand is pretty good. It'll be great if our opponent starts off with an island. They are not guaranteed to do that, but it will be great if they do that. And we also have the Minamo, which is not an island for themselves. So far I like the start. We're up against the red leader. Merfolk fam versus Merfolk fam. Also, let me know, again, do you guys like the educational type of content? I can do more of this. We get Joebrook on again. Does anyone else have, like, leagues of themselves on YouTube somewhere? Let me know, and maybe you could also be featured on the channel. Alright, so this play with Master of the Pearl Trident. Here's my problem with this Master of the Pearl Trident play. Well, I guess you did it so you could attack with Tideshaper freely. I guess that's okay. Maybe I would have just attacked with the Tideshaper. You actually have a few options. You could attack with the naked Tideshaper. See, the deal is I would prefer you play Master of the Pearl Trident on turn 3 after you've played your Tideshaper. And maybe even, like, playing it kicked would be great, and then deprive your opponent of green for their, I don't know, Merfolk Mistbinder or some crap like that. Because the deal is, when you attack next turn, you're going to attack for less next turn. I guess you attack for, maybe you attack for the same. You attack for 3 here, attack for 3 next turn. If you do nothing and play Tideshaper and then play Master of the Pearl Trident, you attack for a total of 6, which is the same as this. Okay, maybe it's going to work out. Alternatively, you could just attack with Tideshaper, and if they block, they block. And if they don't, you play Tideshaper. Maybe, you know what? Now that I calculate it, this line works out okay. It's not bad. No! No, why? Why not play Tideshaper for 1 and hold up Trickster? And have, like, a big turn. And also your opponent's representing Trickster or Hexcatcher. So you can only play 1 card this turn, and after you empty your hand, then you have Subtlety up on turn 4. This is not a mana-efficient play. The next question I'd put up to you, maybe you're doing it because you want to play Trickster and then pitch your Tideshaper to Subtlety? I don't know if I want to do that. I don't want to pitch anything. I think we have too many resources. I'd rather we play the island, just throw it a Tideshaper, try to attack. You don't even have to attack if you don't want to. Because it looks like they have Trickster. You're allowed to just pass. So we see what they do, and then Trickster at end of turn, and go for a big turn and hold up Subtlety. So even if they go for Trickster, it won't even work because you can Subtlety the Trickster. But now we might run into Trickster? No. Okay, it worked out. But I definitely would want to dump my hand. Oh, Ketria Triumph? That is clunky. And very unnecessary in the deck. Like, cycling for... Some people are just way too obsessed with, not flooding out. I mean, it's just basically a dual land most of the time. That's just really, that's a clunker, both in the early and late game. And you probably put more fetch lands in your deck to play that Ketria Triome, which means you take more damage overall. See, we're going to play this Trickster, then we're going to play our 4th land, and then we won't have Subtlety up on our turn. Marrow Regery. That might... Do you know what? Honestly, that might have been a spot where, in response to Regery, I might have Trickstered the Tide Shaper. Yeah, actually, that would have been the play. Trickster the Tide Shaper to see if they have Subtlety, and then played Subtlety on the Regery, and then they're dead. Because they're tapped out, right? And you would have Trickster, Tide Shaper, Lord, and Mutavault. That's 11 damage. So I would Trickster the Tide Shaper just to see if they have Subtlety. And this is still a pretty good play, to be honest. Like, I think you're at 20 life, so I don't see you losing this at all. And, well, why did we do that with the Mutavault? We got lethal. We had lethal. You can attack with a Master. What's going on here? Joe, we gotta wake up around here. We had chat lethal. We had chat lethal and actual lethal on the board. Okay, that's okay. We're so far ahead, like, we can't lose. I've been in that spot myself. You're so far ahead that, you know, all roads lead to Rome. It'd be nice to be a little cleaner, though. Okay, I would still have the Hex Catchers. Like, maybe he's gonna bring in Hex Catcher, because Lord of Atlantis is definitely gonna be better on the play than on the draw. No, we're keeping the Lord of Atlantis on the draw. I would side the Lords out on the draw for sure. Okay, they're both talking to each other right now. Word, Nikachu is just gonna hate the land base. Too much damage. Yes! Too much damage. And loses to Blood Moon. To be fair, this hand would also lose to Blood Moon. I would keep Spreading Seas in the deck if I was just desperate as hell. Sometimes it's not too bad to have it versus... like a blue-white or blue-green version of Merfolk that doesn't have many islands. This version clearly has a lot of islands. We don't need Spreading Seas. Just because it's really clunky, the advantage is, like, you Spreading Seas a Mutavault, and honestly, that's not always good all the time, because sometimes you fix your opponent's mana. So I'd rather just have them out and play, like, almost anything else. Almost anything else. Like, but I would keep them in the deck if I really had nothing else to bring in. But I would definitely 100% would prefer Hexcatcher over that card. Okay, now that being said, our hand's actually, it's pretty clunky, but you know what? We should have faith in the top of the deck. We can go Subtlety, pitch this Spreading Seas. There we go. That's finally, that's a play I can get behind. And just get rid of that Kumena Speaker is going to save you, like, they put it on the bottom of their library, so it was just removal. But it could save you like 8 life for the course of the entire game. Okay, so you're going to go for the Cavern of Souls Aether Vial play with the hope of drawing a land on turn 2. I would have preferred... See, the deal is, what are you going to do with the Aether Vial on turn... when we have Aether Vial on 2? I'm totally fine playing Mutavault and attack for 2 next turn with Mutavault. Like, they're going to play a random Grizzly Bear, right? Where they're going to block our Mutavault? No, they're not going to block our Mutavault. They're going to let it go through. We get in for 2 damage. And then on the following turn, we can Vial in our Lord and attack for 3, and we get in 5 damage. But the way you're playing the game right now, we're actually not going to attack for anything for 2 turns. And it's not even, and it's not like we're dumping our hand. No! No! That was that could, so, what are you going for? You're going for a turn 3 Svelune. Maybe this is gonna work out. So generally speaking, I try to keep the Glasspool Mimic in my hand because that's just an extra threat. And also, I think we can make good use of our Aether Vial in this game. That being said, now that we didn't play the Mutavault on turn 2, we might as well go down this line. Or sorry, Mutavault turn 1. We might as well go down this line. And then on turn 3, we can go Mutavault, Svaeloon, Violin Lord. And then we do have a pretty big attack. So maybe it's going to be okay. And our opponent sort of looks like they're stumbling. Like, okay, they have Hexcatcher. If they play Reedry here, that could be a big problem. They play anything else. Like, they're just a little handcuffed on what they can do if they have Mutavault out here. And their whole development is just going to be really slow. Like, if they play Silvergill Adapt, that sucks. If they have another Hexcatcher, that sucks. We can catch up against all that stuff. And also, we don't have an island. So that's one good thing about this hand. We got no island. Okay, Tide Shaper. Okay, forget it. They got an island. We got an island now. Islands are us. They may not even want to attack with Hexcatcher. Look at that. We didn't tap our Vial. Because we didn't have... So here's the deal. We didn't tap our Vial. Why would we? But because we had tons of stuff up. We have Vial up. They didn't even want to attack with their Hexcatcher. Because if we play a 1-drop, it would be screwed. That's the power of your opponent not knowing what's in your hand. And you have, like, stuff up that they can play around. Because if you tap the Vial and you tapped your land, they would just attack. Or even if you tapped your Vial. I'm trying to get through, you know, people play differently when you have a bunch of mana up and your Vial is untapped. But if you completely tap out and you tap your Vial, then they can play their perfect plays after that. They can play perfectly. Okay, we got a Svaeloon. I'm actually a little surprised you're waiting on this Master of the Pearl Trident here. Because in every match, you just Vial didn't play. You just shoved it right onto the battlefield. Look, everybody, I got a Master of the Pearl Trident. Look at me now. Okay, they go in for an attack. Look at another thing. Like, why are we doing this? Okay, so you could just block that thing with your Svaeloon, right? Like, nothing changes. Nothing changes. You can block the Tide Shaper. And then wait on your opponent. Like, wait for the Tide Shaper to die, or wait for your opponent to, like, play a Hexcatcher, for example, thinking, oh, like, see, here's the deal. Like, let's say you just block with Svaeloon. You're 3-4 Svaeloon, and your opponent is like, oh, now I have two options. I could have used my Dismember on the Svaeloon, but I have Hexcatcher in hand. And I don't want to take any damage. Let's play our Hexcatcher instead and buff up the Tide Shaper to a 4-4, and then Svaeloon as a 3-4 is going to die. But then after they play the Hexcatcher, you go, surprise, I got the Master of the Pearl Trident. Your 4-4 Hexcatcher, your 4-4 Tide Shaper dies anyway. Well, anyway, so like our opponent apparently didn't have any of that stuff that I just talked about. But the point still stands. Like there was no, I just don't know what you're playing around by vialing in the Master of the Pearl Trident when you don't need to. You know, let your opponent make a move and then vial in your stuff. All right, we're about to smack. Our opponent is choked on lands, which is to our massive advantage here. And we're about to steamroll them. See, and they had it. They had the Hexcatcher. Now, it would have changed nothing, but it might have forced the opponent to show exactly what they have. Instead, they had to pass the turn with 2 mana up. Again, you're not playing around a whole lot. You're just playing around Hexcatcher, and I think Dismember, that's it. But still, it's better if you force your opponent to make some moves and tap out, and then you can just play a whole lot easier when you know exactly what they got. Hold on, why do we play Lord of Atlantis? What's up with that? Okay, we are so far ahead, I guess it doesn't matter. Oh, sorry, the quality went down for a second. All right, but we won anyway. All right. That's the end of this. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope everyone learned something. Did you learn something? Let me know in the comments section below. Because we saw some moves today that I don't make ever. But as a result, I could, you know, talk about a little bit of theory to the modern Merfolk deck. And I have to express this in the strongest way possible. Like, to get the most value out of this deck, you got to utilize the fact that we can activate our Vial at, like, end of turn, at the beginning of combat, at the attack step, the blocker step. You got to do it at the right moment, and our creatures have flash. So also play them as late as possible. Unless you're playing around something. And with that, this has been Nikachu, Merfolk Master, giving a little coaching to Joebrook with Modern Merfolk.